We've got a great panel today, comprising, I think, three important attributes. Firstly, all three of them work on very large-scale, complex and complicated businesses. Secondly, all three are entrepreneurs, whether it's Fig Leaves, Flowers Direct, Bertelsmann, many years ago. And also importantly, all three are early adopters, having worked when digital was the bright young thing before multi-channel took over, and now cross-channel is taking over. So all e-commerce directors in the audience, I hope you're writing over your business cards now and becoming cross-channel directors. But let's focus on the role of digital alone in this panel. What do you think is the role of digital in this cross-channel world, and why is it still important? Torsten, perhaps you'll kick us off.
Yeah, and maybe I'd start off by saying that we've talked a lot about retail, logically, in this audience, but I think digital is so much more. It's obviously a distribution channel, which is true in the e-commerce sense, but also for content. So think iTunes or ebooks or the other examples that we've even seen from Dave from the demonstration. Then it's obviously advertising. I guess that's almost how I would use digital most in my day-to-day job, which is marketing for Google. So all the advertising opportunities that are new through digital. But then even more than that, it's a huge mindset shift to digital. What does it really mean? I think it's all these principles of it being very open, about data being available and not getting lost. I mean, fundamentally, digitally really means zeros and ones. And I think we first thought about it when it changed from the disks to the CDs. And what was better about them? You could store more data, you'd have them available forever. And that's true now with digital. So your own personality and profile on the internet, that never gets erased. What does that mean? So that's all in the wake of digital. And even things like digital platforms that open themselves up for worldwide discussion, like we've seen in Egypt and everywhere else, this whole domino effect there. That's digital, that's sort of an impact of digital. So I think just looking at retail alone would probably be...
But I mean, that's sort of, quite meta and, societal. But I mean, if you take a company like Google, which is digital from its inception, the mantra now, from Eric in between counting his hundreds of millions, is all about mobile, mobile, mobile. So if you're saying the company's moving towards mobile, how can you, how does digital, what does that mean within a company like Google?
So for me, mobile is part of digital. I don't think it's a separate new thing. It belongs in there. If you want, it's the internet on steroids in terms of mobile. It just adds all the extra dimensions, like local, like all the NFC things we've seen. So everything that was true before is even truer now with mobile. That being true for trackability, and you add a new dimension with the locality, that being true for just it being much, much more available globally, and different populations, different countries will adopt it faster on a mobile than they have ever on a desktop and jump a whole generation. So I don't, when he's saying mobile first, I don't think he's saying, okay, we leave everything that we've done on the desktop. What he's saying is that because it's everything on steroids, if we get it right on mobile, then we'll also get it right for the desktop.
Great. So hopefully you'll pass the next Google staff drug test. So steroids apart. Jonathan, thousands of staff, millions of customers, dozens of brands. What does digital mean?
I think for me anyway, for Shop Direct, it's about connecting the channels together. That's the opportunity that digital gives us. People look at us as a catalogue retailer. We class ourselves as a multi-channel retailer, with mobile being in the middle of that and bringing it all together. But digital gives us the opportunity now. Ian gave a demonstration before about Amazon's personalisation and relevance thing, showing that when you're online, he'll have made some of those purchases online, but he's getting recommended them offline. With a catalogue, we can take that one stage further as well, and with digital, it connects those channels together. So shortly, we'll be able to see what pages people were looking at through the catalogue, recommending online when they go there, using image recognition or QR codes to connect them together. So for myself, it's about connecting all those channels together. That's what the opportunity that digital brings to us.
But then, I mean, we're just about old enough to remember every decade. In the 80s, you had databases. They were digital, they would connect everything. In the 90s, you had processors that would connect everything. In the noughties, it was the internet's going to connect everything. So can we really be, in the fourth decade of digital, saying it's still just about connecting? So what else is digital going to do? Has the nature of that changed at all within such a complex business?
I think it's changed in the sense, and I think mobile is the thing here, that it's bringing digital personal as well. And people, we now not own the person, that's the wrong word to say, but people are, don't tweet that please, but people are now, we're seeing them instantly, what they're getting to, and we're really getting into under the skin of the people, right, and what they're purchasing or their what's happening on a minute-by-minute basis.
Okay, so we've had steroids, we're under their skin. Michael, you look at dozens of retailers in detail. What does digital mean when you're having a conversation with one of your clients?
Well, I think obviously it means different things to different people. I think what is interesting in this your evolution, I think it's increasingly becoming about the customer. The channels are, cross being the operative word, increasingly convoluted. People are in store with a mobile, they're at home, they're using multiple devices. I think it'll come full circle. Ian Cheshire couldn't have articulated it better. It's about understanding the customer. And I think the people, and I think the difference now is there's a lot of money involved. 10 years ago, actually, this wasn't the make or break thing. I think now, understanding the economics of a customer and really understanding the next best action for each customer, whatever their device they're on. I believe that Amazon track about 500 data points on each customer, and I think that's the really interesting thing. We know where you are, we know what you've done, we know everything about you. Do we give you a promotion? Do we send you a piece of paper? Do we send you an email? Do we retarget you? Of all the things we could do to a customer, how do we use all this data to kind of increase our lifetime value?
I mean, just staying with that point, we've moved very much from inside the organisation to understanding the customer. But yet, even with all due respect, Google touches customers maybe dozens of times a day. You'll touch customers in maybe 5 or 6 areas of their life a couple of times a week. How do we actually get any sophisticated understanding of the customer that isn't just about, if the question is to buy a hammer drill, I've got the answer for you, but that doesn't help you buy a car or understand where you're going for dinner. So what is this understanding of the customer?
So let me give you a practical example, something that again, I think Macy's are doing it in the States, which is for every customer, every day, they're calculating a score, propensity score, based on, recency of visit, frequency of visit, how many emails they've opened, what their purchasing history is. And based on that score, they're then determining how do they talk to that customer. I think the complexity is having a sort of real deep customer insight, and that's about both a sort of an insight-based segmentation combined with a sort of an RFM type of segmentation to really understand. Because I think as individuals, we know when we're being well targeted. When we experience, Amazon style actually recommending us things that we're genuinely interested in. I think it's really taking that kind of genius and that's they're setting the bar of what is possible. So I think that's the game. I think it's how do you, the data is obviously incredibly complicated. There's a lot of it. It all sits in different silos. How you make sense of it and simplify it and say, right, for Ian Jindal on this particular day, we hazard a guess you're going to be interested in these things.
Yes, which is that mix of baby clothes and so on. But again, we've moved very easily to talk about the customer, to talking broadly about the business. But we're somehow getting away from the fact that, does digital still have a presence at a senior level in the business, or have we learnt everything? I think we saw earlier on, we've moved to talking very seamlessly about multi-channelness, as if somehow that's our latest buzzword, so we'll take that on.
I would say, cross-channel and multi-channel is like a triathlon. You better know how to ride a bike before you attempt a triathlon. And I think that, to be a good multi-channel and cross-channel retailer, you've got to be a good digital retailer. Mm-hmm. I see lots of people, and they've got social strategies and Twitter strategies, and they're not even tracking delivery on promise. It kind of feels like they're the ones that are going to get caught out. Get the basics right, understand how you make or don't make money in a single channel, to then understand what multi-channel actually means to the business.
But just to give you a pause, I want you to reflect on this as well, is, again, let's try and pull it back to the businesses. We have job titles, you're called an e-commerce director. You used to be the person who knew how to turn the computer on and talk about Twitter while everyone else glazed over. As Ian said earlier on, the whole board is digital, everybody understands it. I'm trying to get a feel for what a digital native, a digital profession, professional can bring to a multi-channel business? I mean, reflect on Google's internal workings, career-limiting moment here. But, now that Google is much bigger, we hear that, you're struggling, as everyone else is, with silos, with too many meetings. How do you innovate at scale? What would you're hiring someone, what does a digital professional bring to Google that, for example, a rounded commercial or marketing person wouldn't do? What's digital? What's left?
And I'll answer your question in 1 second, but I just have to explain to you why I grinned at you. I'm not sure if anybody has seen that because they were looking at you, but I grinned when you're using the words "with all due respect" and then you launch into something blunt. So you'll have guessed by now from my accent that I'm actually German, and so was my father. And he was 30 years ago, I think he was at a conference. He was with Exxon at a conference in York or something, and then came back to good old Germany, and he told us kids. It was fascinating. So they had this guy, and he would always say, "With all due respect, sir, but you're an asshole." Basically, that was his sort of second phrase. I don't suggest that was the second part of your phrase, but the sort of methodology still applies. So now I'm going to answer your question with all due respect.
But you still got to answer the question, though, with all due respect.
I answered it with an example. When I joined Google, I thought it was quite similar to eBay. It would be 10 years old, Silicon Valley based, etc. And the one thing that I found profoundly different was the speed at which people operate. And I came into the meeting room, I had this new team. I wanted to chair the meeting. Everybody had their laptops open. And I was, okay, that's not going very well. And then they were starting to type on the laptops while I was trying to explain something. I thought, okay, let's just get that over with. And then I came back to my desk, and I opened my computer. And on it was somebody had taken minutes while we were in the meeting. Some people had opened those minutes while we were there and started to resolve those things and take the action items and search for things that we had said we should do. And then it sort of dawned to me, okay, so that's why everything is so fast. People don't wait for anything, they collaborate while they're there. And I think that's a good expression of how deeply ingrained these sort of digital skills and behaviors are in the culture. So it's much, much more than understanding a certain product or having sort of an advertising skill. Is how you, in your everyday behavior, use digital helpers around you to make things happen.
I mean, Jonathan, could you reflect on that? Because, in your business, it's kind of turned inside out in some respects, isn't it? I mean, 70%, I think, e-commerce penetration was the last figure I saw. What does digital mean within such a complex and long-standing business?
Well, I think, going back to last time we met.
With respect.
Yeah, with respect, Ian, but the last time we met, you said my job was going to be redundant very shortly.
Yes.
or the e-commerce director's role was going to be a redundant role, and I kind of pondered that thought on the train journey back. Thought actually he probably is right in that. But at the end of the day, digital for us is about having the whole knowledge of the customer and being able to share that out with the business, whether it's sharing it with the marketing, the attribution modelling, whether it's sharing customer behaviour, customer engagement. So I think it's being able to report back to the business what the customer is doing at any one time and understanding. Bill Gates said a long time ago that the internet's just a reporting tool, and whilst that's extended a little bit, it is still, and we have all that data and all that insight into the customer, and it's being able to then go and share back with the catalogue people what customers are interested in so they can shape the catalogue. And so it's being the reporting tool of the customer for me.
Interesting. And, Michael, when you think about some of your significant clients, I mean, a lot of them have been recruiting new board-level roles, not called e-commerce director, but very conspicuously multi-channel director and so on. When they're talking to you about this, what are the skills that you're saying that those multi-channel, cross-channel directors need? What's the digital aspect of that?
It's a very pertinent question. I mean, I wonder how many FTSE CEOs could have given the speech that Ian Cheshire gave, who can talk about, Android and operating systems and cloud without, with someone who actually understands it and understands what it means for his business. I think one of the challenges of a lot of these boards is they're filled with people who don't get this stuff at all. And consequently, they're thinking that if we just bring in someone and call them multi-channel and suddenly life becomes easy. But the real challenge, I think, is to change the debate, to understand how online is going to radically and digital is going to change their business. And I think had a session with a retail CFO a couple of weeks ago who quite amusingly said, 3-4 years ago, we used to do our budget and then say, damn, we forgot online. Got to remember to sort of budget for online. And then we have our board meetings and we get to the end and say, we forgot to discuss online. He said, now, actually, it's completely changed. Online is now 20, 30% of their business, it's the first thing they talk about. He said what's changed is the level of questioning of the online and the e-commerce people has got much harder. And I think that's so if you say, what is the key skill? A key skill is to be able to articulate, subtle, complex areas like, marketing attribution. If you can't communicate those in a way to help smart business people, but people who haven't spent 15 years in online to actually understand it, understand marketing allocation, actually, I think I think communication skills and people who really actually have a deep understanding of these things becomes very, very important and can take a board with them.
Those aren't strictly digital skills, though. I mean, if you talk to, if this were a marketing conference, we'd be full of chartered marketeers with strong analytic and creative backgrounds who would say entirely their role was about subtle inflection from complex data sets. So again, I'm trying to understand what the digital aspect is, because we're talking around it. It sounds like all we're saying is that digital is basically new business, and that's the way it goes, and then we'll add some mobile in and meet here in 6 months' time for the next conference.
I think, as you said, we've all been at them. There are a couple hundred people in this room, but as we know, the pool of people in the UK who've been in this industry for more than a few years is very, very small. And as we also know, the complexity, how many people could explain fractional attribution to a sort of a retail board? It's just complex.
Is there anybody here who could do that?
It's complex.
Just put your hand up. There are some headhunters waiting outside.
But who thinks it's important? It's very, very important, because it's all about how do you spend money. So I think one of the challenges is, and also what I see is, obviously, then you say how many people have had more than experience in more than one or two businesses? Because I think that's the other thing. I think people who've worked for some great retailers who've gone online generate a lot of revenue online, but they do that, frankly, by dint of being big retailers, not because they really understand in the nuts and bolts how to optimize their business. So I think it's just, as people said, it's a very nascent industry. There aren't people who've been around for a long time. The issues are complex, and the skills are, as Jonathan said, I think it's about taking the data and the insight and communicating it to the rest of the business in a way that they can then consume it.
Okay, so
I think I agree with you that at board level, there's many people that apply the old good skills of data analysis and how to make investment decisions, etc., to digital, and that's very crucial. But oftentimes, I think what's missing is the real immersion in what that means. So have they really themselves posted a YouTube video? Have they sort of rediscovered an old friend on Facebook? Have they done all of those things themselves? And I think as long as that's missing, yes, you can do the investment decisions, but I don't think what you'll do is steer the business towards digital innovation, which only comes with more as a sort of intuition.
Isn't that a slightly trivial example to say, I'm hiring a new non-exec director for a PLC, and because we're a multi-channel business, I can only take you through to the second stage if you can show me a YouTube video and your Facebook page. I mean, if you drill underneath that and say, you want, picking up on Michael's point, seasoned commercial expertise and experience, but also some digital competency. What would you have as your hiring competency that you think sums up digital?
So I guess it is that it's not the sort of superficially having touched these products, but having an example where the intuition shines through of what you can do with the technology, that people have a sense where it can lead to, and have a sense how they might have been wrong in the past as well. Because it's so much not just a linear trend. Like 4 years ago, nobody was talking about apps. On the street, you could have asked a person. Now everybody knows what an app is, and they buy them, and they spend money on it. And that's only 4 years ago. So most of us have people that are older than, have children that are younger than 4 years old. And that's how short the time frame it is. And I think if people have that in their head, that they have that feeling of, we have seen nothing yet, and are really open to what it can bring, and are risk-taking in that area, I think that would be a strong criteria for having someone like that in the team.
So again, risk-taking, very interesting one. Jonathan, what are you recruiting on?
The ability to, attribution modelling and things like that, but the ability to then convey that to the whole market, to the whole company. We've got nearly 10,000 staff, and we've got brands such as Littlewoods that have been around hundreds of years, 100 years or so, and we've got 30 people in e-commerce. Our job is to be able to convey digital to the wider marketplace. So when our B&M, when our buying and merchandising team are there looking at their profits and looking how well a product's doing, they understand what conversion rate on a page means. They understand absolutely what profit per page is. You know, 'cause that's the catalogue business that we live in. But do they really understand the difference between a product being in stock and out of stock? What difference price elasticity have to the conversion rate on the page? So it's going out of our comfort zone, our e-commerce zone, and being able to talk in English to the rest of the departments in the company so they understand e-commerce. And that's certainly from our position that we're in, that's a big challenge for us. You know,
Again, if you think about a buying and merchandising team, then apart from the fact they have a maniacal glint in their eyes that scares me to my bones, they are the people who can drive Excel and data cubes like nobody else. You're talking to marketeers now who have realized that Excel isn't just a way of doing columns in Word, but is, a tool for analytics too. Your IT department are now, agile, object-oriented programming fiends. So throughout the business, it's not right, surely, to say there are only 30 digital people at the vanguard. I mean, haven't digital skills become prevalent? I mean, every 12-year-old now is more digital than I am, at least. So where's the digital hinterland? What is that?
I think we as a business, we still have our challenge to convey digital through the business. You know, our B&M team, for instance, we had a big meeting on SEO yesterday, and they think catalogue first. So they'll write the content of a product, and they'll write because we work in seasons, so the products are created 6 months ahead, and they'll write for the catalogue first. They won't write for keyword, relevance, and it's that kind of thing building into the B&M team. Okay, it's not you've got to write product for the catalogue content, but actually let's think about what content's going on the web first and foremost. So it's getting it front of mind. So they might have the knowledge, and they've certainly got the will. That's a great thing about our business. They've all got the will, and they all want to be digital marketeers and digital knowledge, but it's making sure they understand it's got to be right at the front.
Good. Well, I tried my best to provoke you, but fundamentally, we're all coming back to, conception of the customer, a commercial engagement, and very much developing those channel skills throughout the business. So despite having tried it, I didn't really get far on that. But Michael mentioned earlier on about the 452 inputs at Amazon, which is interesting. I'm sure that most of those come from the top 6 and the rest are refinement at scale. But just to close off, we have a few minutes left. So maybe let's just go around and work out that, in your world, you haven't got 452, you just got 1 or 2. What are the key inputs in your business that you'll be watching like a hawk? Torsten, you kick us off.
So if I'm talking about what I'm looking after at Google, which is sort of the marketing for Google, I'm quite aware that we need to also walk our talk. So we are telling the world, Eric Schmidt foremost, mobile first, and think about that. And certainly the usage of our products, be it the consumer products or sort of the AdWords business products, they get used more and more in a mobile context. So I think somebody earlier had the example of builders now use their smartphone to do whatever. Like, this is the state your bathroom is in. I've just taken a photo and look at my calendar. Yes, I can see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Have we really got a mobile interface for AdWords that would suit them well so that they can check in on things on the fly? No. So there's really things we have to do ourselves and live to that mobile first aspect. And in marketing, it's the same thing. You can use it as a channel to market, or you can use it with like the AdWords interface was an example. You can use it as content or as an application on there. But for almost 2, I want to ingrain it in my hand and in my team's head to always have that sort of checklist that we are walking the talk.
Okay, so mobile.
Mobile's absolutely the front of our agenda at the moment, but I think our chief exec Mark made a comment about 3 years ago that we wanted to get to 70% online, and it was all about migration of our offline business to online. For us, and one of the things we'll be looking at is multi-channel engagement now. We've got to the 70%, but this game isn't about getting to 90% and then 100%. In my past life, I was at a company called Dabs.com, and it was absolutely about getting our consumer customers to 100% online. Then we could switch the phones off, save some money, and carry on. But actually nowadays, it's about multi-channel, because the more engaged the customers are across all channels, the more demand we're going to get per trader, per customer. So for me, for the next 12 months, as soon as our mobile optimized site comes out, which is very shortly, it's getting customers engaged across every channel. And that also means getting them engaged across the phone lines as well, actually phoning our operators in certain circumstances as well.
And so just quickly, the staff you have in the contact centres, how are you going to train them to no longer just answer the phone and type into the green screen? Are they going to be multi-skilled, multi-channeled, more enabled?
Yeah, absolutely. We're making sure that the customer journey when they get offline is exactly the same as they get online. So the products they get recommended offline with is using the same relevancy engine as they get used online. So that, and the click to call, which we just started doing last week, it's the same messages that they're getting, absolutely.
So again, very commercial, very customer focused. Michael, what do you think are the big inputs?
So I think the reality is there are a lot of inputs. I think that, let's be clear, Amazon is not $32 billion turnover without a good reason. And I think the key for me is to measure things that drive action. I spend a huge amount of time working with retailers, and you look at what reports they look at to run their business, and you wonder what are you actually doing? How do you make decisions based on this data? And I'll give you one example, which you've talked about in the past, but availability weighted by page view. It doesn't matter that you're 95% in stock if your customers are looking at the 5% of SKUs that are out of stock. Understanding that metric, understanding that actually drives action, because you either get more of it or you stop customers looking at the things that are out of stock. It's a pretty subtle, it's pretty sophisticated. It's not easy to get at because it doesn't drop out of an analytics system. But actually, I think it's one of the sorts of metrics that actually really makes a big difference.
Good. Well, I mean, it's great to hear that it doesn't just fall out of analytics. So there's still work left to be done for e-commerce directors. Long may they last. So a big thank you, with the greatest and most sincere respect, to the panelists for a fantastic contribution where, despite having tried to narrow things down into just a digital domain, I think what we're seeing very clearly is that within a cross-channel world, even digital professionals are focused very clearly on the customer, upon the customer's experience, and developing commercial propositions for them. So Michael, Jonathan, Torsten, thank you all very much indeed.